Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Engineering Equipment Committee of the Vallecitos Water District for Tuesday, February 27th, 2024 at 3 p.m. at the district office boardroom. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, I'm going to dispense with reading the notice to the public then, and we'll get right on to our items. The first item is fiscal year 23-24 Capital Improvement Program Quarter 2 update.
Correct. Senior Engineer Morgan will lead us off. Second year update.
All right, thank you, directors. Capital Facilities has been very busy on several fronts. We'd like to just take this opportunity to update the directors on some key developments and things coming to the board of directors way over the next few months. On the Vallecitos bwd.org homepage, Capital Facilities quarterly updates are always available 24/7. If you come to the engineering department tab, you click on engineering, you click on the Capital Facilities cog, it opens up active capital improvement projects, and you just click on that. And this will take you to a map with thumbnails on it, representing all of the ongoing various capital improvement projects that we have going on at one time. I would just like to simplify things. And if you click on this link, CIP project information, it'll change the format into a list format of our projects, of which I'd like to just first start off with the Palos Vista pump station motor starters upgrade to just bring everyone up to speed. Construction began all the way back in August of 2022 on this project. This project was delayed due to market conditions, various circumstances around delays in electrical component procurements. Just recently, we've completed the install of all 4 motor starters in February of this year, and the project is now substantially complete with project acceptance looming on March 6th, either March 6th or the March 20th board meeting. This is really just informational to be transparent with what is coming out to the board here shortly. That project is not nearly as big as the Tres Amigos waterline replacement project phase 1. This project has been an ongoing operational headache, so to speak. We're averaging 1 line break a month, essentially. I think we've had 12 breaks in the last 12 months, and that's continuing to track. Just recently, we completed, or we are permitting, doing the AB 52 tribal outreach and requirements of the CEQA initial study mitigated negative declaration. We are planning to adopt that at the March 20th board meeting. That will be coming in front of the board. Concurrently, we also have construction management and inspections requests for proposals advertised currently, and those proposals are going to be due next month in March. We plan to get a CM on board with that. And kind of at the same time, we're also going to be bid advertising in March, and we hope to award in the May timeframe a construction contract, and then issue a notice to proceed in June. So this fiscal year, with any luck, we'll be actually breaking ground this fiscal year. And my last quarterly update of significance is just to talk about the Metal Arc, both. I'm just calling it the Metal Arc plant improvements. It's a combination of the conversion to sodium hypochlorite and the chlorine contact tank expansion, both large projects, plant expansion projects. We decided to marry the projects together into one construction contract. We're going to achieve a lot of efficiency this way, get one contractor responsible for both projects on site, avoids or kind of mitigates the risk of the contractors pointing the finger at each other and playing the blame game a little bit and avoiding some headaches there. We get one contractor, they can take ownership of the entire site and move things along. And we also expect to receive some scale of economy savings with that, lumping it into one contract together. CEQA actions have been accepted just recently. The notice of declarations have been filed. We're finalizing the design on both projects. Both are in final design currently. And we are also advertising an RFP for construction management and inspection services. That is also out on the street currently. Bid advertisement is like Tres Amigos planned for March. And we hope to award in May with an NTP with any luck in June. And we'll get going on this project. Just to remind you, this is the CCT expansion component of this project is grant funded. And we have grant funding deadlines that we have to meet as far as when construction is completed in September of 2025. So with that, we are tracking to hit that target. And that's really it. I just wanted to remind the directors that these capital facilities quarterly updates are available online at vwd.org 24/7. And we update them on a quarterly basis. And if there are any questions related to this item is informational only. I can take those questions at this time.
Ryan's done a really good job of, there's a lot of projects going on. He's giving you a sneak peek of what's coming to the board here in the next few months. So it's a good opportunity for you to kind of see what's coming up.
All right, well, thanks for that update. Any questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Cool.
Everybody knows what's here. It's good to know. Can go on there. Yeah. So is that pretty common for line on Tres Amigos? You fix one brake, it just puts pressure down the line, it breaks another, puts pressure, that's pretty common?
Super thin
Yeah.
steel pipe.
So you fix one, it's just gonna, yeah, I know that, yeah.
Yeah, they've had several breaks where they
Not by
fixed.
much though, huh?
Oh.
Not just, it's a good 10 years older, I'm sure.
Was that pipe used when it was put in?
I do not know. The original installation on that line was in the 50s or 60s. And
We bought it from farmers.
okay, there you go.
It was similar to Rainbow Water District had installed a bunch of used line. I think they had gotten from March Air Force Base or somewhere like that.
Oh yeah.
Farmers actually had it installed, so we purchased it from the farmers.
Okay.
Basically, it was already there.
We recently went to the field with a group of construction management firms and did a site walk, and some of the residents noticed we were out there and they stopped and questioned us about it. And a lot of times we get some pushback from the community, knowing that there's a construction job coming to their neighborhood, but everyone really seems pretty enthusiastic about this. And I think, Ed, you can probably confirm it. I think as far as our water distribution system, I think this is the worst in the system that we have problems with operationally.
Gotcha.
Good. It'll be good to get it replaced.
And then you said, I mean, we've got a few bids out on the street. Do we have a reputation as far as Vallecitos? Are we easy to deal with? I mean, as far as contractors look at us, love to deal with Vallecitos, or those guys are tough. I mean, do we have a reputation?
I think we have a good reputation. I mean, we get competitive bidding, and that's our number one indicator that.
So that's because I was down in Encino. We're only getting like one or two bids. We've got plenty coming in.
Yeah, our track record shows that, and it's somewhat dependent on the type of job that it is. This is a linear job, and it's large for our CIP standards. I think our estimate's about $5 million in construction, so we expect that'll pull some good competitive bids.
A lot of it just depends on the market and our other agencies bidding work at the same time. That'll pull contractors away. Ryan and his team are using Planet Bids, so that gives us a bigger pool to draw from. So we're doing all the right things to capture. But as far as reputation, I'm going to say we have an excellent reputation, and I'm a former contractor.
That's what I've heard too. I just want to make sure.
So who did work with Vallecitos?
Really?
So absolutely. So yeah, Vallecitos has a really good reputation and firm and fair.
And that's I like those words. That's good. Firm and fair.
All right. All right, we'll move on to item number 2 then. Las Posas Waterline Rehabilitation Project Update.
All right, this is the next item. It's on the list, and
Let me tee this up.
we have a new presenter this time.
Yes. Where am I at? Okay. Yes, so for the Las Posas water line replacement project, this project will be coming before the board shortly as well. And Allison Fisher, the Capitol Facilities Assistant Engineer, has been very involved in the management of this project over the past 6 months and getting it through the select bid process, which she will talk more about. And I'll turn it over right now.
Take it away, Allison.
Microphone.
Good afternoon, directors. It's a pleasure to be able to tell you today about the Las Posas waterline replacement project. Pull this in a little bit. Alrighty. The Las Posas waterline is a 10-inch AC water main that was installed in 1981 on Las Posas Road between Linda Vista Drive and Stone Drive. To give you a little reference of where it's located, Grand Plaza is in this upper right-hand corner right here. So the replacement project is this highlighted green section right here. It's only about 110 feet long, and it crosses over the storm drain culvert that's outlined in yellow right there. It actually crosses underneath it. And this is the same location that there was an emergency waterline break in 2016. Here's some photos of that waterline break in 2016. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see where construction had to do some exploratory excavation, and they found the break approximately 14 feet deep. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the concrete culvert. See how close it is to the water line there and how difficult it was for them to get to. Here's the two different pipe materials, and the ductile iron is the one that's undercrossing the concrete culvert. And this is the repair that construction had to do. They installed a stainless steel temporary full circle repair clamp.
This is 8 years ago?
Mm-hmm. As you can imagine, being so close to the concrete culvert with the depth, groundwater conditions, and traffic, it provides some constructability challenges. Here's a profile view of our project. You can see in beige the triple box culvert there, the water line in blue. And this just really points out how unique this project is because you can see the 45-degree bends. Let me point them out right there, obviously. 45-degree vertical bends. This also has some 45-degree horizontal bends in this project. Most of the pipeline is AC pipe, but this one portion under the box culvert is ductile iron. And this just points out that it's 14 feet deep from the existing grade just below the ductile iron pipe. And that star is where the water line break occurred in 2016, right next to the box culvert. Alrighty, so in design phase, staff explored some trenchless technology options, and we really like the Primus liner. We think it's the perfect application for this project. It's very strong and flexible, and it's approved for portable water use. This liner is strong because the middle layer is composed of Kevlar woven fibers, and the inner and outer layer is actually polyethylene. So it's very flexible and it can maneuver easily through those 45-degree bends. This product is used worldwide, and locally it's had success in the city of Carlsbad, Valley Center Municipal Water District, and Rainbow Municipal Water District. Just going to give you a quick rundown of how it's installed. First, 2 excavation pits are dug on either side of the repair section. The pipe is cleaned, and then the folded rehabilitation liner is pulled through with a winch and cable. Air inflates the liner and forms it into shape, and this is unique opposed to sewer lining projects. There's no resin involved. It's just air that inflates the liner and it stays in shape. And then the rehab pipe is connected to the existing pipe, and the access pits are filled. All right, staff solicited 3 contractors, only 3 for this project. And just last Wednesday, February 21st, 2 out of the 3 submitted bids, and we opened them last Wednesday, Advantage Reline Services and In Situ Form Technologies. Our fiscal year budget for 2024-25 is $402,000. We do have a budget deficit of around $80,000, but just keep in mind that last year our budget was hovering around $1 million because we thought we were going to go with the open trench replacement, and we switched to the trenchless technologies. So that's why the budget changed so much. But so we are a little bit over budget. All right, our next steps are to go to the full board for approval on March 6th, and we're going to take the construction contract for award, and then we anticipate construction in April or May. All right, this item is for informational purposes and to get support from the committee. So at this time, we would be happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Any questions?
Oh,
I have lots, but I don't want to just keep asking.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm kind of a
This is,
Go right ahead.
this is the time.
No,
I want to commend staff because like Allison said, this project was always looked at as a traditional open trench and it is extremely deep. We did look at other options of potentially going over the box culvert, and she didn't state this, but I think that box culvert's about 50 feet wide.
yes.
So it's an extremely large
Yeah.
box culvert. And that's why the budget was so high. And then as staff got into the weeds and we're looking for better options, more affordable options for the district, that this is what came up. And so I want to commend staff for pivoting on this and coming up with this concept.
Didn't, was there another break on this line? Didn't a contractor doing some other kind of work bore into this or something?
Further down,
Yeah, okay. So is that an issue as far as that repair, whether that's temporary or permanent?
they hit a steel line. It wasn't ductile, it wasn't AC.
Oh, you're thinking of the one on San Marcos Boulevard?
No, it's
I think it was further north.
entrance to the movie theater on Las Posas. The
Right.
boring company hit our pipe twice, and then we found they punched through a 15-inch sewer line, which we found later when we went to clean it. And they actually put conduit right through our.
Yeah, I remember
that.
Ryan has a sample of the Primus
Yeah.
liner if you want to see it.
So we don't have any of this in the district right now. We haven't used it before.
No, so this will be the second liner that will have ever installed on a potable water line. Of course, we're doing a lot of lining on sewer lines. The criteria for installing on a water line, a drinking water line, they have to meet much more rigorous requirements, obviously, chemical compositions, et cetera. There's standards that they have to meet. So this will be the second one we've ever installed.
No, I mean, I commend you as well for thinking under the box instead of out of the box.
I like it. You guys need to use that at the board.
Okay.
Because yeah, that does look like, I mean, is that pretty typical? What, 400,000 for 100 feet? Is that?
Lining products typically they need volume. So they need large projects to really come down and be really competitive for open bid or as compared to open trench. However, when you go trenchless, you don't have all that pavement replacement, less impact to the traffic, less impact to customers. So it's a much less impactful. Yeah, and there's cost associated with that, right?
Yeah. Mhm. No, I commend you as well. I think seems like interesting. It'll be seems like a little tester as well, a little guinea pig maybe.
Yep, it's a great, almost like a pilot to see how it does. And we think and like I said, like she said, it's been used in other agencies, so we're not a guinea pig. This has been tried and true. So
Oh,
Thank
good
you.
job. Thank you.
So is that being pushed through the
No, there are limitations to it.
Mhm.
If there's service connections on the line, if there's outlets on the line, you really can't use this product for that.
You gotta dig at those spots.
Right. So the real advantages for this project is we can get this liner through multiple 45-degree bends
Yeah.
and inflate it to its full structural integrity. And there are no service connections. There are no outlets. It's really a good fit for what we need out of this project. It allows our excavations to be shallow and not deep, to access the line at the upper 45 degrees.
yeah, I mean, a lot of these situations that we're looking at for repairs and replacements, it's good to have a lot of tools in the toolbox, right? This doesn't work in every application, but in this case, it does.
Any other questions? You good? Well, thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 3, Development Services Project Update.
All right, I think the last time the committee had an update on development was in August. So this will be Director Pennick's first look at it. And for that, Senior Engineer Lopez will take it away. Oh, yeah, get rid of that one.
Mhm.
We expect you to see all the numbers on the screen.
Yes, hopefully everybody has
Oh, those
really
little
good
ones.
eyes. Good afternoon, Engineering and Equipment Committee. I'm here today with our biannual development project status update. So similar to Ryan, he just gave you the quarterly update for CIP projects. This is our biannual update for development projects. So if you haven't seen this update before, because some of you are new, the projects shown here, and I'll zoom in so we can see it more clearly in a bit. But the projects shown here in green on the map and in the table are projects we currently have approved for construction. So those are construction agreements the board has already approved at a board meeting. Projects in pink are projects currently coming through plan check through the Development Services Department. Those will be the next projects you see coming to board meetings for construction agreement approval. Projects in blue are planning studies. That's just where we're doing our water and sewer studies. It's the first step of a development process as the developers seeking their entitlements through the city.
Is that all done in-house?
Yes.
Okay.
All of it. We're
Thanks.
very busy.
You are very efficient. Thank you.
So if I can zoom in. Projects here, I'll focus on what's in construction, and something that I would like to highlight. Projects here in construction, we show on this exhibit the number of water and sewer EDUs and how those correlate to capacity fees we anticipate collecting. If in construction, if you see 0 on the table and no capacity fees shown, that's because the customer's already paid. Sometimes they pay early on in the construction process. Sometimes it's at the end of the construction process. So for projects in construction, we anticipate collecting still remaining about $200,000 in water capacity fees and about $2.1 million in sewer capacity fees. Payment of these fees, we anticipate to be collected in the next year, approximately. Moving on to projects in plan check. We have a lot more projects in plan check. We probably have a lot coming to construction soon. And looking at the summary of projects here, we have about $9.2 million worth of water capacity fees we anticipate collecting and about $20.5 million of sewer connection or sewer capacity fees we anticipate collecting. The timeline for collecting capacity fees for projects in plan check, it's a little bit longer than construction, anywhere from probably the 2 to 3 year range is kind of what I would anticipate to expect. For projects in planning, projects here, early on in the first phase of development, sometimes projects don't move forward to plan check and construction, but a lot of these will. So water cap fees estimated for projects and planning is about $28 million, and for sewer capacity fees, it's $77 million. The timing of accepting fee payments for these projects can be 5 years or more, just depending on how long it takes for projects to move forward through plan check and construction. So something I thought I'd highlight that's keeping us busy and we're excited about lately, here on North Twin Oaks Valley Road near Barham Drive, North City West is a pretty big development project in plan check right now. I anticipate that will be coming to the board for construction agreement approval probably in the next couple of months, so you'll be seeing that soon. So if you have any questions, this was just an informational update only item.
Question.
No, that's good. Yeah, no.
You have them.
No, I appreciate the information. Yeah. I don't want to prolong a meeting too much because I have lots of questions, but nothing that'll be. I mean, can you go back a little bit?
Yeah, what would you like me to go back to? Yes.
To the numbers. What was
Numbers,
that?
the money guy.
Yeah. There was one on there. The one more down? I think the middle one, the ones that were in.
Plan check?
So there was that. So the Restaurant Row, mixed use, and Sears.
Yes.
Are those 2 different projects?
Yes, they're next door to each other, both
know.
in Restaurant Row. One was the old
Is
Sears
it 2 different
building.
developers?
Yes.
Doing 2 different things.
Yes.
What's going on with Sears?
It's redeveloping to residential. 82 mixed use, so there's some commercial, and then next door to that is the restaurant row, portion of restaurant rows redeveloping also to mixed use with commercial and 202 dwelling
Oh, I
units.
thought those were combined, so those two
Mm-mm.
totally different developments.
Yes.
Okay, so I looked at that one, and then there was another one, North City, great, no. No, that's just, I love this. This is good information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Lots of money in the pipeline.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 4, Twin Oaks Valley wastewater infrastructure capacity fees.
I think it's the same team taking it, correct? All right, go ahead.
Oh.
And welcome.
Thank you. Apologize for my tardiness. It's all right.
Yeah, so this was has not been brought to the Engineering and Equipment Committee. So this will be first time the committee has heard from this. We have presented before at Finance and P3.
Okay, good afternoon. So here we're going to talk about Twin Oaks Valley Road wastewater infrastructure and capacity fees. This is also an information only update item to discuss proposed sewer capital facility fee increase, which should be presented to the board for consideration in the near future as a result of the Twin Oaks Valley Road Sub-Area Master Plan, SAMP as we call it for short. So as you may recall, the board approved a budget for the SAMP in December of 2022. So at some level, you've all seen it then. Since then, staff has provided a SAMP update to Finance and P3 committee as recently as November of 2023. So for those of you that were not at those committee meetings to receive that November update, as a reminder, while working with development projects in the Twin Oaks Valley Road sewer basin, water and sewer studies for several projects in that part of the district discovered that there was existing sewer deficiencies in Twin Oaks Valley Road and that our sewer is over capacity right now for existing connections we have in the basin. For context, the portion of the district we're referring to when we refer to the Twin Oaks Valley Road sewer basin is this area highlighted in various colors here. Along Twin Oaks Valley Road, north of Mission, up to about the north end is Deer Springs Road. So knowing that our existing sewer is over capacity, the permanent solution to address this was for the district to construct sewer improvements and upsize sewer in Twin Oaks as a district CIP project. But in order to do this, the district needed a funding mechanism. So that's where the SAMP came in. And the purpose of the SAMP was twofold. It was to determine how much capital facility fees would need to be increased to construct these improvements as a district CIP project for Ryan's group, bringing more work for Ryan. And also to address what properties would be applying those increased fees to. So since November updates to Finance and P3 committee, the proposed project costs for Twin Oaks have been finalized and the proposed fee increase has been finalized. So that's the purpose of the update today, is to share that with you. So the scope of the sewer improvements in Twin Oaks Valley Road are shown here on this figure with Mission Road here to the south, Deer Springs to the north. It's about a 3.5 mile pipeline upsizing project. The district's master plan did identify this 3.5 mile pipeline project as project SP31. And that project was identified and it was needed for future growth. The master plan identified anticipated future growth in this part of the district after 2030. And sometimes capital projects identified in our master plan for growth after 2030 are not always funded through collection of sewer capacity fees. Those cap fee payments we're just looking at on the previous item. So basically existing sewer cap fees we've been collecting do not fund SP31. So sewer improvements shown on this slide are the permanent solution to address this. In the interim, developers are trying to get projects approved in this part of our district, and city and district staff have been working together collectively to come up with some project-specific unique solutions to allow projects move forward in an interim time frame until we get these improvements constructed. But in order to allow projects to move forward with any temporary and project-specific creative ideas, we need a funding mechanism approved for these sewer improvements, so we know that the ultimate solution is moving forward. So with that, for the purpose of today's update, as we dove through the cost of the improvements of this 3.5-mile pipeline project, the estimate's about $26.2 million. So what that means is that CAP fees, sewer capital facility fees, would need to be increased from about 16,500 per EDU to about 20,000 per EDU. It's an increase of $3,500 per EDU. To equate that, one single family home is one EDU of sewer. So that'd be about $3,500 increase per single family home connection. For those of you that were part of the committee updates in November, you may recall that we had broken out 2 different options for this proposed fee increase. One option as shown here, this is the fee, the $20,000 fee here would be applied to anybody connecting to sewer in the district. It would be the same cost regardless of where you are. We did discuss a second alternative of keeping this fee increase limited to the properties in the Twin Oaks Valley Road sewer basin. But as we dove into those numbers, it got too expensive. And what staff was concerned that there may not actually be enough development within that basin to apply the fees only to those properties to be able to actually collect adequate funding for our project. So when we bring this item forward to the board in the near future, we'll be bringing it and proposing it as shown here, which is one option for the proposed fee increase. This proposed fee increase is shown here would not have any negative impact to ratepayers. So this is an information only item to update you on this proposed fee increase that's coming. Next steps is to continue outreach to development community and solicit input. We've been working with the developers impacted by these deficiency issues in Twin Oaks Valley Road, so they're well aware that we're proposing to increase fees to fund building our own capital project. They've so far been very supportive of this concept. We're finalizing the CAP fee study, just the language with BBK, and once that's finalized, we'll schedule finance committee discussions on final recommendations. We'll schedule board workshop with public involvement, including the BIA, and then we'll bring forth the recommendation to the board for capital facility fee adjustment per Mitigation Fee Act. With that, I can take questions.
I'm sure the committee has no questions on this one.
Yeah, I think I keep asking the same question, but are developers okay with the postage stamp rate district-wide?
Yeah, so our whole rate structure and almost the majority of most agencies' rate structure on CAP fees is a postage stamp structure. And when we really dove into breaking that stuff out, it opens a Pandora's box, because technically if you're looking at a segment of pipeline, whether it's from valve to valve or from manhole to manhole, you can make the argument that I use less of the infrastructure than somebody who is upstream of me or downstream, depending on which way you look at it. So when you look at the postage stamp structure, it's widely used in the industry. It's never been challenged. Doesn't mean they won't still ask about it. But also, as Elizabeth pointed out, you're looking at a fee that's probably in excess of 20 or 30,000. I don't even know where the number would land per EDU if you just kept it in the basin. And there's almost no way that basin will develop enough within the next 20 years to reimburse our ratepayers.
So
The
it goes,
adequate
it goes to 20 if you do it district-wide.
Oh, beyond that, I don't even know what the number.
I think he's saying the increase would be 20
Oh, I
rather
see.
than
Yeah, it'd go to
3,500.
40 or 50,000
Gotcha.
per EDU if you just keep it in the basin. And there's no, if you know that basin, there's not that much development in there.
Right.
So, the district would end up being on the short end of the stick, and then it would end up, basically creating a deficit in our account.
Yeah, on the physical situation with the pipeline being at capacity, are we seeing any like surcharging or overflows or anything?
No
Are we not
overflows,
looking,
but the The pipeline was, we actually had staff go out there during dry weather flows, peak dry weather flows, and the pipeline is full, is my understanding.
Nearly full.
Nearly full currently, and that's peak dry weather flows.
So what's it doing in the wet weather? Do we know?
Um,
We don't want to know.
currently, we're getting by.
It has not. I'll get on with it, it has not spilled.
Yeah.
We've searched.
So we're living in a surcharge condition currently. So, and just so that the committee is aware of that total budget, I believe we're replacing an existing 8-inch and putting a larger pipe in. So the replacement portion comes out of replacement reserves. The capacity increase portion, which is the difference between the new pipe size and the 8-inch, that is the portion that goes on the cap fees.
Any
Well,
questions?
that's what I was gonna ask. What are we, we're going from what to what? 8-inch to
It varies 12 to 18.
They're gonna go back to the map
for 3.5 miles.
Yes.
as you go further downstream towards Mission, you get more and
Is
more
there existing pipe
connections.
all the way up, or are we putting in any new stuff?
It's existing.
It's two existing.
It's too existing, it's back to that redundant stuff.
No.
Serving different areas.
Yeah.
What's the age of the existing pipeline with regard to the development around there? Did that go in way
think it
before?
I think it varies.
It does.
Yeah, it sort of varies as you kind of go through the valley, but I know the as-bills, and I know Ed likes to say this, the as-bills for that line show the original Twin Oaks, which I think was a 2-lane road with oiled dirt or something. So it's very old. Well, we were talking about old as dirt.
Unlike Ed.
So the Twin Oaks Road you see today is much different than when
Yeah.
that pipeline went in.
I was just wondering if that pipeline was kind of sized for the development that happened and
That's a good question, and Director Arthur. So I've been asked that by the city and a few other people, and if you may or may not recall, so as the Borden Road area developed with Paloma and that neighborhood, and also the Twin Oaks area developed, the original development plans that the city had in their land use had much smaller developments, and the city didn't adopt a new land use for I can't remember, it was 18 or 24 years or some a long period of time. But what they did is they allowed a special planning areas, what we call spas, to increase densities along that corridor, on both sides of Twin Oaks, the west side and east side. Those spas at the time, the district didn't have a mechanism to check, or even in the modeling structure back in the 90s and early 2000s, to check how that would impact our infrastructure. So as the city increased densities along basically the Palomar College corridor along Borden, and also increased densities along the Twin Oaks Golf Course after that neighborhood development to increase to allow more homes and take away agricultural land, more sewer just went into the system. And that's how we got to where we are today, where we have more sewer connected to the system. And it's really a direct result of the sophistication of our modeling software and the normal practices in the 90s and the early 2000s of not just Vallecitos, but all districts. And then the way the city developed, kind of piecemealing it, not a unified vision that was laid out.
it was basically denser than original plan.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, that harkened to later on that density impact fee question, but this wasn't even part of that equation. But that's kind of the pitfalls of not understanding how that development and how the incremental increases over time could affect your infrastructure.
So a couple quick questions. You said you had a outreach to developers, and you said feedback is positive.
Yes, so far. So we've been communicating regularly with 3 development projects in this basin that are directly impacted by these sewer deficiencies, and they're supportive of this concept of paying the higher cap fee and the district constructing this as a district CIP. We have not shared with them what that proposed fee is yet. That's coming soon.
I've shared some roundabout numbers, and they're okay with the roundabout numbers.
So how do we sell that to them? Because the purpose of the increase is to upgrade this line at 3.5 miles. But when we do this increase, it's permanent increase, right? For future development. I mean, how do we say we're going from 16.5 to 20 for everybody to increase this 3.5 miles? and it's gonna stay that way, even though now we've funded this one 3.5 miles of.
Well,
infrastructure.
any new,
Because do we change it again? Do we lower it again once we've gotten those development fees?
no, it's going to take us 20 to 25 years of development throughout the whole agency to collect that money back. And then
20 years.
that's how
We're
our,
gonna do the
Yeah.
managed growth stuff. Okay.
yeah, so that's how our cap fee structure is. And that's the committee members may recall when we went out for debt service, those are 20, 25-year loans that are funding projects that Ryan's building today through his group. So we're fronting the money, and then the developers are not only paying the initial cost of the project over time, but they're also paying for all the interest.
So that's what I'm saying. So when we send out now, developers gonna come in and want to put in a development, our fees now are not 16.5, they're 20K and
Yes.
going forward indefinitely.
Correct.
And that none of them said, yeah, okay, I'm not going there anymore. How is that compared to other agencies, other cities? I mean, if I'm a developer and I'm looking to put in, I don't know, 100 homes, look at Vista, Carlsbad, RB, wherever, and I'm thinking, okay, Vista has 12,000 fees.
So-
We have 20. I'm going to go to Vista. I mean, are we comparable? How does that compare to the surrounding area?
Cities work a lot differently because they have much different fee structures because they have a benefit tax incentive for development. So they can actually discount certain types of fees because they know they're going to get tax incentives. It increases property taxes, increases revenue, sales taxes. So they play that numerics a lot different. We're very simple. We're a water sewer agency. We have a cost allocation that is very transparent for the services we provide and a cost allocation for the infrastructure that we provide. And the developer can build it themselves, get partial reimbursement. We could build it through our structure and within our cap fees. Those are pretty much the options. Most other agencies in the county are not growth agencies. So they intermingle their replacement fund, which is by ratepayers, along with any type of capacity fee. So that makes it a much different apples to orange comparison also. So we're probably the last agency in the county and one of the very few agencies in Southern California that is still what we call incremental, which means there's two funds. Growth pays for growth and customers pay for replacement, and those funds don't technically intermingle. We can borrow one against each other, but they have to pay each other back with interest. So with that, there is very little comparison. I can't give you a look at this agency. They have the exact same setup because it's an apples and orange setup. That being said, a lot of developers have talked to us about that. We are looking probably in our next master plan cycle or possibly the one after, depending on the amount of growth in the city housing element, to look at a hybrid method that takes away from the incremental method to a full-on buy-in method, which intermixes those funds. But we have to be careful because when you intermix those funds, if you don't do it right, you could have developers being potentially partially supported through water and sewer rates. So right now, those two do not touch.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you again, Elizabeth. We'll move
Thank you.
on to
Great job.
item 5, the helipod project update.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Ed's gonna do this presentation, but as I'll just set it up as the committee is aware of. We've been working with the city and the county to put together basically a heliopod at one of our sites, and we're getting pretty close. So with that, when Ed's ready, he'll take over. But I think we've just had recent meetings, and at the last board meeting, I made the announcement at GM that I think we're going to have the groundbreaking ceremony on April 20th. 30th. Thank you. So that's why Ed's here to make sure I'm right. April 30th and 10 a.m. Right?
Yep.
10 a.m. So with that, Ed, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, directors. I'm the fish out of water operations guy at an engineering committee meeting. Was
It's
James have
engineering and
against
equipment.
me? What's he got against me?
Looks good. Looks good.
Anyways, as James mentioned, he mentioned this at the last board meeting briefly. The helipod project really started about 2 years ago. Robert Gutierrez, I'm trying to remember his last name. Actually, a friend of mine. He's the owner manager for Rainbow, And they were the first agency in the county to install what they call a heli hydrant. It's similar to this, although it's a steel tank that's constructed on site. We started going down the road with that. Jason Nalen, the fire marshal with City of San Marcos Fire, he reached out to me and said, hey, I met with Robert. They have this heli hydrant. CAL FIRE is really interested. What do you think? So we started looking at it. I met with Robert. We reviewed their heli hydrant. When they went online, it was a big deal. They had the news out there. They had the CAL FIRE helicopter come back down and pull water out of it and do a drop. So it was a pretty big event. First one in the county. There's a few more that have been installed in the county now. We moved forward with the manufacturer of the heli hydrant for a while. We were working with him on the contract, but we were having difficulties with that person and their business. And the cost was 170,000 plus just for to buy the heli hydrant, have them install it. So it was very expensive.
Is the heli hydrant and the tank the same thing?
The heli hydrant and the helipod they do the same thing, but they're different. So it was a welded up steel tank that a tank manufacturer made on site, but it does the same thing.
Gotcha.
While we were working with this contractor, the company that makes the helipod actually met with San Marcos Fire and said, hey, we have something that's similar, but it's mobile and it's a lot less expensive. It's just over $50,000. And you'll see here in a minute, it's essentially a roll-off trash container, that they modified to make into this helipod. So one of the first things we did is we met with CAL FIRE out at a couple different sites. The first site I thought was going to be fantastic. We met at Twin Oaks Reservoir. And if you remember from the tour, right in front of our chlorine building, there's a hill that was constructed to kind of hide that building, and it's flat on top. We originally were going to make a little picnic area up there. We never did. So very few modifications. We could have had that heli hydrant set up there, brought out the CAL FIRE pilot. And he goes, nope, Santa Ana winds will fly me right into that hill because it would have pushed the wind that way. So we're like, okay, that's not going to work. So the second site we looked at was at Palomar Tank, and that's where this is being installed. Palomar Tank is right off of Borden Road, directly behind Palomar College. So you access it actually off of Borden Road. We met with CAL FIRE and San Marcos Fire on site. His first picture is a little chain link compound that was there that had a water pump station for irrigation when the homes were built around there and Palomar Tank was installed back in the 80s. They had to get the brush and everything to grow, and there's no pressure because that was the highest point with the tank. So they had their equipment there, and then it just kind of rotted after all of the natural habitat came back. So it had been sitting there. CAL FIRE said the first thing is we got to get rid of things that can hook the snorkel. So when they come down with the suction pipe, it's kind of got a little steel cage on the bottom of it they normally would be pulling out of, like, say, South Lake, and you can't have algae and sticks and fish get caught in there, but that snorkel can get hooked on things. So we had to remove that chain link fence, remove the equipment, and then you can kind of see it in the picture here. We also removed the top 3 strings of barbed wire and razor wire up there. So those were the things that we did first. Then we had to connect to our water source. So going up to Palomar Tank is a 24-inch CMLC pipe, steel pipe. So we had that hot tapped, and we installed an 8-inch gate valve, and then we ran 8-inch PVC across to where we're going to set the tank. So there's our crew. That's a shoring box. There's the 8-inch PVC line we installed. And then we also had to have a place to set this down. Now, the helipods are designed to be mobile, but they're also designed to have a fire hose hooked to them with pressure. Well, we don't have pressure at Palomar Tank because you only have the head that's in that tank. You might have 5 PSI if you're lucky. So we can't do it through a fire hose. We can't do it where we don't make 8-inch fire hose. It wouldn't be filling very fast. So we actually needed this to be sitting somewhere that wouldn't move, because we're going to have a solid steel pipe going to this tank connected to a PVC pipe. We can't have the tank sinking into the asphalt and breaking our infrastructure. So we had to pour, this was the most expensive thing for us, Vallecitos, we had to pour a a concrete slab that could withstand the weight of the water, which is many, many tons. So you can see the steel pipe that we installed coming up out of the ground that connects to the PVC pipe below. And then we had our concrete structure poured. So that concrete pad, because of the amount of rebar that went into it and its thickness, that's about a $20,000 piece of concrete right there in order to handle the amount of weight that's in the helipod when it's full.
And what is it, like 8 by 20 or something? It seems like.
It's bigger than that. It was I think it's 12 by 21 or 22. So there's the finished product with the concrete, and then that's CAL FIRE actually delivering the helipod. So like I said, it's mobile. They have a specialized truck that actually just hooks to the end of it. It's a pretty neat design, actually. They can drop these anywhere that you have a hookup to water, but they are definitely designed somewhere where you have pressure. The heli hydrant design was made more for where we're installing this, but we just kind of modified how they normally hook up. They normally would come across with a 4-inch line and hook up with a 4-inch fire hose. We knew because of the low pressure, we needed a lot of volume in order to fill that tank in a short period of time. That shot just kind of shows you that these mobile devices, if you flip open the ends there, you can put fire hose, you can put all kinds of stuff. We are working with City of San Marcos Fire. They are either purchasing another one of these, or CAL FIRE might be getting them another one that's going to stay up at Station 4, so at the top of the hill at Double Peak. And then they have to work with us, because I told them, you're not just putting that anywhere. You're going to tear apart our system in San Leo Hills, and that ductile iron pipe doesn't like things as it is. So that's the next thing after this goes online. We'll be working with them on areas they can set up their mobile one. We had to bring in a welder, so we had to anchor this tank to the concrete. So that's him fabricating the feet for the tank, and then we put some pretty big concrete bolts through that. That's the welder fabricating the steel fill pipe. And then the construction crew, they've been doing all this work. They've been fantastic. Our own guys do a lot of fabricating as well. So they installed the steel pipe. There's almost to completion on the fabrication, and you can see the valve. This valve is it's a special valve that takes very little to open and close. It's very low head there, so that's not a problem. And it is a butterfly valve, but it's really designed to work off batteries if necessary. The one in Rainbow, in fact, it's all on solar battery backup. They don't have power running to it. And then we gave it a nice coat of red paint per CAL FIRE's specs. And then shout out to my guys on the construction crew. I told them, hey, look, we can't have the end of that pipe open like that. That snorkel is going to hook on it, and we're going to crash a helicopter. And so I said, think of, something expanded metal or something, go around that and down to that first shelf there inside the helipod, so that they can't hook it. And also, we need obviously not to restrict the water flow. And this thing works fantastic. It diffuses the water when it's filling, and does a great job. So there's our nice redneck pond pool. I had a video, which I'm not going to show, one of the construction crew guys when we were filming it the first time. I said, did you really have to do that? He's sitting in that corner on top of that box, and he's kicking his feet like a little kid. And he was just having fun watching the water go in there. The thing about this is we were actually very successful in our design with the 8-inch pipe. We can fill this from completely empty in just over 5 minutes.
And how many gallons is that?
It's 6,500 gallons. So we're moving some water through that 8-inch pipe, and that was our main goal, was to be able to. Most of the firefighting helicopters, they're 1,500 or 2,000 gallons, so they're not even going to take this halfway down, and by the time they come back, it's full again. The biggest one that CAL FIRE has in use is the Sky Crane. I think that's SDG&E's actually, and it's 5,000 gallons it can hold. So it would almost empty it, but within 5 minutes, it's full again, and they're ready to fight the next fire.
And I believe what the final product, when it's done, the helicopter operators could have a radio signal to open that valve up. The
They-
That's what I was gonna ask. Okay.
the heli hydrant that Rainbow has, they chose to do that there. Cal Fire doesn't care for that. So actually what we're gonna be doing is, during the summer months, whether Cal Fire or San Marcos Fire contacts us and say, hey, it's hot, chance of fire, go ahead and fill it. I have a feeling we'll probably just keep it full during the summer months. Santa Ana conditions, we'll have water in it. Doesn't hurt us any. They have water sitting there waiting for them, but we will be able to control this through our own SCADA system. So that's actually what's happening next for us. The remaining items, the patches you see there, plus the area that the city had there, we're going to seal coat. We had recently seal coated pretty much everything there at Palomar Tank. So the rest of the area already looks good, and that was just in our budget that was scheduled. So we're going to go ahead and seal coat the patches. We've had enough rain and sun to get the oils out. The programming of the SCADA system for us to remote control it from here in our water operations, that's supposed to commence this week. And then we just have a couple of air vacs and stuff there to paint. That's nothing for us. The city and Cal Fire, we've been waiting now for months for them to give us a windsock. And originally Cal Fire was supposed to get us a windsock to install. But now they threw that on San Marcos Fire's lap. San Marcos Fire is trying to decide, do they want to pay almost $4,000 to buy this one pre-manufactured that meets all the Cal Fire specs, or do they want one of their guys that's a good fabricator to make it? They still haven't got back to me. They did mention that, oh, we thought we would install it. I'm like, oh, good, go ahead. And it has to be on solar because where they want to put it, there's a little hill inside the compound. There's no power over there. So I told them, whatever you do, it's got to be solar because they do want lights on it for nighttime. They agreed. Cal Fire has, we used to call them the campfire girls. So the women's prisoners that are in the, what do they call it? Low risk programs. They go out and they help fight fires. So they're the ones you see in the orange jumpsuits going out cutting brush. Well, when there's not fires, when it's not fire season, we used to get them for like $1 a day practically per person to do weed abatement on our easements and on like the lake dam faces and stuff like that. It was great money. It was great to help them get rehabilitated. And then when COVID hit, that program crashed, and now there's no longer any funds for it. So Cal Fire did say they would come out and have them clean all of the weeds along the access road and around the tank. So that's one of the things they're doing. So they need to schedule that. They're probably going to do a little touch up on the helipod. We pressure washed it for them. It's still, I don't know that it really needs paint, but they're going to look at it. And then each agency that's involved, Cal Fire is already on there, but Vallecitos Water District is supposed to have a decal on that tank because we've done all the work for this. So we're going to be represented as well as the city of San Marcos on that. Chris Robbins and myself met with Jason Nealon from San Marcos Fire and Tess, I can't remember her last name.
Sanger.
Yes, and she's with the city of San Marcos. So we met to discuss the ribbon cutting ceremony, which mentions tentatively scheduled for April 30th at 10 a.m. It'll be all of the board members hopefully can make that. City council, mayor, county supervisors most likely, also press and other staff will be there from Cal Fire and San Marcos Fire. And we're hoping to get the chopper to come in and do a demo over there. So.
The intention on that ribbon cutting is Vallecitos is going to take the lead. We put in the most amount of labor, hours, money, and it's our facility. So, but obviously it will be shared between the three main agencies.
And that's all I have. Oh, any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? I see your light is lit up.
Oh, it is lit up, Mike.
Go for it.
Thank you. This is cool. No, it's really cool. Two concerns, two questions. Cost. I mean, was there any grant? Is there any grants? Or I mean, did this come out of our budget?
So the helipod itself, Cal Fire paid for that, and
Okay.
I won't say donated, but that's their part of it. So that's about 52 to 55,000, I think, on that.
That they donated?
So it's that kind of fit their part. City of San Marcos, we have not received any any funds from them, and that's something that James will talk with Michelle about. It's pretty much all been in our budget. If you counted out our labor and overhead just kills us on these projects.
Yeah.
If you took that out, then we've spent about the same amount of money as CAL FIRE so far on that concrete pad and then the welding and the materials. So outside
So
services
there's no
for
like
that.
state fire grant money that we could have used.
We did talk about that, and there wasn't any available at the time that we started this project. That there may be some that we could get
Yeah.
after the
Okay.
fact.
Just wondering.
Director Pennick, so talking with the city's working on grant funding on for their portion of
Good
the
luck.
contribution, so to speak. So what I've told the city is, yeah, get your grant funding for your portion of funding, and whatever is remaining, then you guys could write us just a smaller check. So in other words, if they end up getting $50,000 in grant funding, we're more than 50,000 or more than $100,000 in, including overhead and everything else. We'll end up getting that $50,000. The city will get the grant, and then they'll basically pull it over to Vallecitos.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet.
And then you said during summer months, you might leave it full.
Yeah, we wouldn't, I mean, we'd probably freshen that water every so often. It'll turn green pretty quick.
Well, that's
but
a concern though. I mean, with that's a big neighborhood, and I know teenagers, as soon as they find that out, there's a liability there. that could be
we've thought
huge.
about that as well. There's no way for us to keep them out, especially with CAL FIRE
Yeah, that's what I
having
was
us take
wondering. You
the
had to take down this
razor ribbon down. Eventually we'll have a camera system up there. So that'll be one way we can keep an eye
because
on
that's huge liability.
it.
Ed,
As an
I
insurance
mean, I would
person,
just
know.
say, let's not, yeah, I mean, there's still a liability issue
So
there.
we still have to work out the procedural protocols, but there's, once we have SCADA, which we could operate that valve remotely, then it will minimize the times that we'd have to fill it. But Ed's right. If there's existing
Yeah.
fires.
I mean,
in
I
the
can
area-
understand existing fires, but I would say keep that unfortunately empty as often as we can. I mean, for multiple, like you said, algae, if you keep it out there and all of a sudden, then we got a clean out problem.
It'll probably stay empty most of the year until we get those Santa Ana times.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
No, I love the project. I think it's great. And I think it's, super, but just a few concerns.
I agree.
So Ed, how many of these does CAL FIRE have around the county?
I know they bought several, but I think they're keeping theirs mostly mobile. I don't know that there's any other. So Rainbow had the first one, which was the heli hydrant. It's not mobile at all. I believe one similar to the heli hydrant was installed by the Wild Animal Park.
Okay.
I refuse to call it Safari Park. It's the Wild Animal Park. And then CAL FIRE was using theirs, I believe, for only mobile purposes. So I think ours will be the third in the county that's a permanent site.
So the mobile ones, do they have them staged in one place or staged around?
I know that San Marcos Fire wants to stage one at Fire Station 4 on top of Double Peak, but other than that, I'm not aware.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. for that
One last
update.
question. Is it
Sure, go ahead.
helipad, heliopad?
So I know James has been calling it heliopad, but it's helopod.
Helopod. Just so I know.
I know I used to call it heli hydrant because that's what the
That's right,
first one
yeah.
manufactured. So if you call it heli hydrant, that's fine.
So
But
it's called
the guy that competed, he had to call it something different. So helopod.
helopod is the
Helopod.
correct.
Yep.
Okay, helopod. Gotcha.
Took me a while.
All right, so we'll move on to item 6, asset management plan project update.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, Anthony, do you want me to get some IT support on? I think we're, oh no, looks like you got it going again. So we're getting the Zoom basically back up and running. It kicked us out for some reason in the middle of Ed's presentation. So
Boring.
So in the meanwhile, so with the asset management program, the committee members are aware, we've been working towards a full, what we call an AMP, an asset management program for a while now. And the asset management group, led by Eric and Susan Bowman before it, and moving forward. Now Eric has moved over to ops, but still helping out asset management until we get the new permanent replacement. With that, we've hired Black & Veatch as a consultant to put together our AMP, our asset management plan. And now we're starting to finally have the results of that study and bring it back to both the committee and then also to the board. So this is the first of more than one, workshop or presentation in which we're going to be talking about the concepts within asset management and also the potentials. At the end of the day, there's going to be a board decision on basically level of service, risk assessment, and how much capital and the direction staff will take moving forward to ensure basically not only long-term viability, but generational equity for our systems. So with that, if you guys are ready, I'll hand it over to our dynamic duo here, both Eric and Jason.
Thank you for stalling, General Manager Gumpel. I think we're almost ready.
Almost ready. Okay. I need a signal. One more minute.
Oh, we got it right here.
Keep on dancing.
You can tell us what happened at the dentist or something. I don't know.
My teeth are clean and no cavities.
Is this for the record?
That's a good.
For the record.
That's nice.
And ready? Good job.
I
Go.
believe we are ready. Okay. All right, good afternoon, Engineering and Equipment Committee. I'm here to provide an update on findings of the Asset Management Plan, or the AMP. As the project is coming to a close, we would like to take this time to review the project, some of its key concepts that are needed to fully understand the document's results, its funding strategies, and next steps for the asset management program and the district. We'll begin with a brief project overview and review a key finding of the asset management plan. Then we will review risk-based decision-making and how that plays into our long-term and short-term renewal replacement forecasts, as well as condition-based replacement planning and the benefits that provides to the district. And then we'll finish with asset management programs, next steps, and then take any questions. All right, so here we have a list, or I guess a slide of some of the work that we've completed to date. To accomplish the goal of developing an asset management plan, the district partnered with the consulting firm Black & Veatch, who guided staff through numerous exercises, workshops, and extensive data requests. During the project, we participated in meetings to determine and review our current levels of service. Let me not cover that. To review our current levels of service, our desired service levels, and then Black & Veatch benchmarked the district against industry standards and made recommendations for us to implement. These recommendations include routinely testing our large meters, having a complete asset inventory, and regularly updates of our asset management plan. Another part of the project was to perform desktop condition assessments of various assets and asset classes of our systems. These included water mains, sewer mains, pump stations, tanks, reservoirs, and our Meadowlark water reclamation facility. These assessments involved multiple meetings and workshops with many O&M departments using their in-depth knowledge of our systems to assign scores, which could be used later in our risk analysis. Along with this, Black & Veatch assisted the district with identifying gaps in our data in our CMMS, and GIS systems, and developed asset fact sheets to help us better track our assets in the future. We also performed a risk analysis where consequence of failure and likelihood of failure scores were assigned to various assets, and the scores were later used to help produce a 75-year funding analysis and renewal and replacement forecast. And lastly, Black & Veatch recommended next steps for our asset management program and the district.
The graph on this slide shows the district's assets and their installation dates, both in linear miles for water and wastewater mains, as well as counts in vertical assets. And this represents one of the key findings and played a major role in developing our asset management plan, and more specifically, the funding scenarios and renewal and replacement forecasts. As you can see, the district has a relatively young system, with the lion's share of our assets having 84% of them, to be precise, having 10 or more years of remaining useful life. This puts the district in a good position, and we can capitalize on the fact that our systems are relatively young when compared to other utilities, which in the next decade or so gives us a bit of a buffer space that can allow us to analyze our assets, map out needed replacements, and plan for funding them without feeling like we have any major immediate needs. This allows us to grow the asset management program, collect better data, gain a better understanding of our asset condition, and plan accordingly. Before we get to the replacement and funding scenarios, we're going to spend a few slides on how analyzing risk plays into the funding and replacement forecasts. Here we have a risk heat map. This visually shows the interaction between likelihood and consequence of failure scores. So we'll begin with likelihood of failure, and the easiest way to understand this is when the assets are installed, they have a likelihood of failure of 1, and as they age or deteriorate, they progress to a 5. Consequence of failure is a bit different though, as it does not take into account age or condition. Consequence of failure is based on the economic, social, environmental, and political impact an asset failure would have. An example of this would be a large water main in front of a hospital or a college. So with a consequence of failure, a score of 1 means low impact and a score of 5 means high impact. This heat map shows the interaction between the two, consequence of failure and likelihood of failure. And the goal is to have as little assets as possible in the red areas and the purple areas, which is our high and medium high risk zones. It's up there.
It's a 5 on likelihood of failure. The consequences of failure are not a 5 at least.
Yeah, by the way, if you have questions as we go through this, please stop and
Vertical assets, those are what, buildings, tanks? Pretty much?
Correct.
Is that pretty much it? or
Yeah, pump stations, tanks,
Pressure
reservoirs,
regulator
pressure
stations,
stations.
Anything above ground, pretty much?
Yeah, linear, just think of their pipes.
Right.
Yeah, their pipes, some manholes, pipes, valves.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. So once we understand how the heat map is produced and populated, we can then use a risk multiplier to assess our risk portfolio. And as you can see in the first heat map, it shows our water assets mapped out where their consequence of failure and likelihood of failure scores intersect. This number is a count of our assets in each box, and this count is then multiplied by its associated risk multiplier, and our risk portfolio is determined.
So really quick, so the risk multiplier is static. So it's applied statically in the first table, basically which shows your existing asset conditions. That's a snapshot in time. Correct? So at any given snapshot of time, you put your assets in based on age, based on where they are, whether the consequence is high, and apply the risk multiplier, and then you get a total score.
And again, on the heat map that shows our asset counts, that shows our total water assets, which is a total number of 614, and those are distributed throughout here. And this heat map is a snapshot of where we are at this current moment, or when the calculations were run. Okay, using the risk portfolio scores, we are then able to map out multiple risk scenarios over a 75-year period. This slide shows the district's worst case scenario, which would be us not performing any proactive replacement and only acting when a failure happened. As you can see over time, if the district were not proactive only reactive, we would experience a rise in our risk, which equates to a 73% risk score increase. And again, this is our worst case scenario. And it's ending in 2097 after the 75-year period. However, over time, we can reduce our risk by planning, taking actions, and continually reevaluating our assets and their conditions. As you can see here, over time, if we assess, plan, and fund and replace our assets, we have the ability to reduce our risk based on the level of investment of time, personnel, and finances. Also, routinely performing condition assessments not only reduces the district's risk portfolio, but also produces the district's savings through extending the lives of our assets and shifting replacement costs from emergency repairs to planned replacements. Now that we have seen the district's worst case scenario and how investing over time can affect our risk portfolio, we have a best case scenario displayed. This scenario achieves the lowest possible risk and is calculated and has an unlimited budget and no limits on staff's abilities to perform the work. As you can see, the model shows the best and worst case scenarios, the best and the worst case scenarios displayed. These are going to be our bookends for all future forecasts that we're going to see. All of our scenarios will have the results that show the risk reduction as a percentage of the total between these two. One thing to take note of on all the graphs as well, in all the scenarios, is that I have a similar rise in the early years, and this directly correlates with the relatively young age of our systems, as mentioned earlier in the key findings. And right now, for the next 10 years, our assets should age as expected, and it should allow us to be able to plan accordingly, and we should be in a position to tackle the projects as needed. All right, now that we have briefly discussed the risk calculations and the district worst and best case scenarios, we'll begin looking at our long-term and short-term forecasts. But first, we need to understand a few of the constraints that impact these scenario results. The first one that we will look at is our desktop condition assessments. This was limited to data that we have in our CMMS and GIS systems, and also to interviews and workshops with staff. Next would be the resourcing constraints. This is saying that right now, to meet these requirements of these models, we would need to start executing 24 projects yearly for the next 10 years. And then in 2035, we would have to increase that to 32 capital projects yearly.
And that's above and beyond what's on our existing books. And no matter what scenario you're looking at, the project list stays the same because there's an assumption that if you're not getting to projects, then they become emergency needs, which still count as a project, correct?
Correct.
Have we monetized those at all? What that means? 24 to the 32, I mean.
Yeah, it'll come up in later slides.
All right.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one is that the models and the plan does not take into account current capital projects that are in planning, design, or being built right now.
Yeah, so when Trace is done, it'll come off. It'll come off this list when Trace is completed and replaced.
So how far out does our current CIP go?
We have a 5-year and a 10-year outlook on it, and then the master plan takes us out 20 years, but we're already really more like 15 years now because the master plan's been in play for a while. So from there, when we do a new master plan in the future or updated master plan, we'll extend that back out. So master plan is always a 20-year look ahead. We budget 5 years, and then we also forecast out 6 to 10 years.
So is it mainly replacement projects?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess that's a good question. This asset management plan is 100% replacement project.
Right.
Our CIP project in the master plan is 100% growth related projects. And then current workload that's in Ryan's group has a mixture based on our existing asset management practices. As we know, things are failing like Tres Amigos, and also items that are identified in the master plan.
So maybe it's on a later slide, but it's a goal to have a replacement master plan.
Yeah, this actually will end up becoming our assessment replacement master plan, our R&R schedule, and we'll end up but it's more dynamic because, and you'll see later, without getting too far in the slide, it's more dynamic where there could be updates on how that shifts based on findings every year or every couple of years.
Yeah, it's great because it creates a whole nother roadmap for the district.
So so Black and Veatch, our consultant, helped formulate all of this. Do they do this one and done? This is what you guys got and we're out, or do they stay on board to help us manage?
Well, the goal of them helping us with build this asset management plan is, yes, they initially compile all of this and do it all for us, but they show us their calculations and how everything was put together.
Moving forward.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the goal is eventually for the asset management department to be able to handle this on their own every year or biannually to make sure that we're getting continuous updates and adjusting our risk scores based off of what's been replaced and where we're at.
Yeah. Our scope had them basically build us a model that we can manipulate ourselves based on actual findings. However, we'll probably still end up for several years needing a reduced level, but some sort of help until our asset management department and our asset management basically dashboarding abilities mature.
Thank you.
All right, so now we will get into our long-term forecasts, our first one. And this first scenario is a $2.5 million budget increase from our current capital spending. And that increase is escalated by 3% over 75 years. As you can see, this scenario produces a 35% risk reduction from the do nothing scenario and has an average annual spend of $1.8 million, but that's in 2025 dollars. And you'll notice as the spending increases over the years throughout the analysis, it rises to about $20 million. And as it starts creeping up there, and that's when our risk reduction starts to creep down the most. And then also, as noted or as mentioned in the earlier slides regarding the heat maps, our goal is to have as little projects or assets in the high risk zones as possible. And this scenario in after the 75 years, it would leave us with this heat map right here. And we would have 20 projects in the red and roughly 160 in the purple, which is our still high zones. So.
And just to kind of add to that, then this is one of those things that we're going to be coming to the full board with as far as what's the appetite of the board. And the way I look at it and the way we're looking at it as a team is there an appetite to have 0 projects in the red? And the project will slide in, slide out depending on when you take that time step. But in general, is that the goal? So the goal to have 0 projects in the red and purple, because each one of those has a monetary price tag with it. And then not only a monetary price tag, but also do we have enough staff to actually complete the work, to actually deliver the projects? So those are 2 concepts that are coupled together that we'll be talking about in future board workshops, talking with this presentation. The board will see a similar presentation, probably get expanded and also address any comments that we have here today. But that's where we're leading to. Where do we want to be? And also, any type of in the future slides coming up, a little bit of cost benefit analysis.
Okay. All right, so our next long-term forecast is a $15 million year budget increase on top of our current spending, and that is escalated by 2% each year for 75 years. This scenario produces a whopping 62% risk reduction, and anecdotally speaking with Black and Veatch, as we were going through this is one of the highest risk reductions they've seen. I think the next one they said was around 70%, but this is pretty far up there. So this one over the 75 years has an average of $6.4 million spending in 2025 dollars. But as you can see, that spending dramatically increases over the years. But with the higher spending over the years and tackling those projects, as you can see on our heat map here, we are left with only 4 assets in our critical, in the critical group, and only roughly 100 in the purple. So that's about a 75 asset reduction from the 2 scenarios. So how do these scenarios compare? Here you can see the projected spending and savings for both water on the left and wastewater on the right in each scenario compared to the worst case scenario. The top line displays the estimated costs over time for our worst case scenario or with no proactive replacements. These costs would be due to increased system failures requiring emergency action from the district or its contractors. And as you see in the long run, if we only respond to system emergencies, we are forecasted to spend roughly $1.6 billion between water and wastewater. However, if we implement the second scenario, and increase our capital budget by $15 million a year, perform condition assessments, and use a risk-based planning, over time, the district potentially could realize a savings of $600 million off of the worst case scenario spending.
And you know, when you look at these numbers, I mean, obviously some projects like pipelines have a 75-year life or maybe more, but a lot of the vertical assets, pump stations, within that 75-year period, they're replaced once or twice already. So that takes this into account. But you're looking at well over $1.5 billion in potential liabilities. And when we get comments about our reserves being too high at 80 million, and staff keeps on saying 80 million is not much. Now we have the benefit of time here is the good news. And we also have the benefit that our asset conditions right now are really in excellent shape overall from the grand scheme of things. And we're also looking at taking advantage of that in different ways. So.
Okay. So moving on, we come to our short-term forecasting. This section focuses on the next 10 years and during the period where our assets are still relatively young. Again, this forecast uses the bookends of the no proactive replacements in our best case scenario and also the $2.5 million and $15 million scenarios, but it's only looking at the 10-year snapshot. So the outcome of these, as you can see for the $2.5 million scenario, we would see a $6 million projected savings off of the worst case scenario over the next 10 years. And if we chose the $15 million a year scenario, we would only see a $7 million savings. This again reinforces the relatively young age of our system, and it's showing that we have time to plan. And in the short term, we can take the path of least resistance and spending to achieve the same goal of replacing our assets as needed. So what should we do in both the short and the long term? Over the short term, the district should utilize a bit of our reserves to increase our CIP spending and increase our CIP budget by $2.5 billion over the next 10 years. And in the long term, we should consider the second scenario, which is a budget increase of $15 million escalated by 2%. This scenario produced the greatest amount of risk reduction and has the potential to leave the district in the best position. However, I must state, as General Manager Campbell said, while the risk reduction is great, the scenario requires substantial capital spending increases. And as noted in the model constraints, the number of projects would need to be completed is extremely high at 32 per year. At our current staffing levels, this would be 10 plus projects per CIP engineer. That would need to be addressed before implementing this.
And that's too many right now. So we wouldn't be able to achieve it under current staffing levels, even if the board said go forth and we're going to fund this amount of money.
A year now.
I don't know. What's the project total? I think, we're getting 6 projects to 8 projects done a year, probably is what my guesstimate.
Yeah, 6 is right.
Between the 3 staff members.
Plus or minus.
Now we're, jumping that up to that 6 to 8 still remain. Now you're adding 24 on top. Some of them are small projects, straightforward replacements, but some of them are more complicated too.
All right, so now we will discuss condition-based replacement planning and the benefits it has to the district. Here we see what the likelihood of failure would be if we only used age-based replacement as a factor for replacing our wastewater mains. If we base it only on age, right now at our current our current snapshot, we would have 30 plus miles in the high risk grouping. And this could lead to unnecessary increases due to replacing the assets before they need it.
And Eric, the current model that this committee members have seen is based on this chronological formula, correct? So what you've seen is based on age base to this point.
Mhm. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a desktop assessment that we
Right,
talked
right.
about in the
It's funny
beginning.
because I was gonna ask, are we
Yeah.
replacing without assessing and then, but no, you're answering
No,
the question. right
it
now.
creates that baseline. That's that baseline model.
Yeah, so one of the things to note on this one is that there are certain areas of our sewer system that our crews cannot get with their camera. It's small, but that is there, but most of them we can get. And the ones that we can assess with our camera van are in good shape for the most part. And that's what kind of this display is here, saying that when we can assess it and get eyes on it, we can see that the VCP is still good. And we can, rate that as a lower score. Okay. All right, and then this graph illustrates the possible savings we could realize by basing replacements on risk and asset condition versus age for our water mains. Thank you, Jason. As you can see, replacing solely based on age, the district would begin replacing assets sooner and at a higher rate, that leading to unnecessary increases in spending. And if we perform condition assessments and risk-based replacements, we are extending the life of our assets, and we will be able to have a reduced spending and without taking on additional risk. And we will be able to use that savings from our spending to where it could be used most.
And this potential savings is above and beyond the savings that the district would already realize between proactive replacement and waiting for emergencies. So this is what you saw before. You saw some savings. This is above and beyond that.
All right, and so finally,
Did Black and Veatch do anything with condition based, or did they do everything on age based?
a lot of it was off the condition base was the desktop condition assessments that we did. So when we sat down, we had multiple workshops with different departments. For example, we sat down with our staff from Meadowlark Reclamation Facility, and we went through specific assets like groups, for example, like motor control panels, and talked about consequence of failure if that happened, likelihood of failure if that happened, and then based off of that, condition scores were assigned.
Eric,
Thank you.
will you back up for me a few slides to the one where it shows suspending, the last one that shows suspending?
And Director
plan?
Pinnock, this really captures that institutional knowledge that staff has. And that's one of the advantages of having this plan, is it creates, it encapsulates that knowledge into a plan
Yeah. No, you're right.
for moving forward.
Yeah. Nah,
So we know where those critical assets are based on, our staff.
right.
So
Perfect. Thank you.
the whole process has really shown us that our operations staff, our engineering staff, our staff in general has done an excellent job of asset management up to this point. And it's really shown because we've been replacing critical assets, high risk assets, likely to failure assets in a timely manner. It's getting to a point now where we still have some time. And this short-term graph, what I want to point out and what Eric's been stating is, if you look at the spending plan, there's almost no spending plan in the first 10 years because of the age of our assets. We could let the assets just age and then really start working on projects. That's not the recommendation, but that's a possibility. The other thing we can do in the next 10 years is allocate funding for condition assessments and look at all those assets, and go ahead and go to one of the next one with the heat chart. Look at all those assets that are in the red and purple and start identifying, doing condition assessments on those ahead of time and see if there's useful life left. And if you look at, there's a potential, and you look and run some of the numbers for water and sewer, you're looking at, go back another slide. Keep on going back, sorry. If you look at, whether it's the 15 or 2.5 million, you could have a strategy of spending $2.5 million of, or $1.5 to $2.5 million in condition assessments over the next 5 years, and then updating those charts and see the results. And if the results are favorable, because even though you're spending $2.5 million a year, there's statistical evidence that show that if you do age-based replacement, 70% to 80%, if you're lucky or unlucky, of the asset you're replacing has actually got plenty of useful life left. You just don't know because you don't know until you dig it out of the ground. So if you do a condition assessment, it costs money. And then to go and do spot repairs costs more money per lineal foot than replacing a whole pipe. But your total cost, and the example is instead of replacing a $20 million pipe, you end up spending $5 million between condition assessment and replacing the pieces that you need and making the repairs. And now that pipe has another 50 years of life. And you just slide that scale. You basically spread those costs out more and more. And you keep on doing that, a balance between condition assessment and proactive replacement. But now you're replacing assets based on condition. Not every time, because it can't be perfect about it, but hopefully prior to the end of the useful life. You're getting most out of it. You're getting 99% of the life out of it. And that's the ideal situation. There's no guarantee you'll hit that. You definitely won't hit that most of the time, but you want to be as close to that as possible. And the way I look at it is you could probably, if you look at this 15-year scenario, with the first 10 years doing proactive condition assessment, assuming we get good results and spend good money on it, which still takes time, effort, and staffing, you could probably see another $400 million plus of savings on top of the savings that you already see on this graph. So these are really big numbers and really big liabilities that the board will have to grapple with and then make a direction. Because from a staffing standpoint, we have 10 years, and that 10 years is a blessing. But if we do nothing in those 10 years, this is the scenarios we're looking at, and they look at basically a $15 million number in average spending. If you take this 10 years and proactively condition assess our system, we could potentially reduce that spending amount significantly and the costs and liabilities to the district, and while still maintaining our level of service. And that has a domino effect. If you're ahead of it, you're doing plan work, you are increasing staff on the engineering side to do that plan work, but you're not hiring a whole nother crew because you're dealing with constant main breaks, and you're not hiring, for every 1 or 2 people you hire to do the work up front, you're saving 2 to 4 people on the back end on staffing, not only just the direct cost of replacement under emergency, but also the staffing costs. But it takes money up front to do it. And this is why I'm saying this is not only a big decision for the committee and the board, but there's also a big kind of almost generational equity decision, because we're spending money now to ensure that our rates and our conditions and our level of service maintain relatively level with at least the things that are in our control 40, 50 years from now. And that's really the big concept here that the committee and the board needs to tackle with, and then come back to a decision and direction to staff. And each one of the decisions does have a domino effect, because it means additional cost, not literally today, but relatively today, to chase after huge potential savings tomorrow. And I just say potential because we haven't done the condition assessment. We don't really know. I'm just going based on industry standards. Sorry, Eric.
It's all right. Took all my talking points for me.
Yeah. No, you have one more slide.
Yeah, well, while we get to next steps, I will expand a little bit on what General Manager Gumpel said about the effects to staff. So we are very limited in staff, especially in asset management. We really have a team of 3, and really 1 who's focused on condition assessment. And of course, that person's been promoted, so I'm getting a replacement. So we are using different ideas. We've been using technology in the last several years to try to fill in that gap. So a couple of years ago, we did some ground penetrating radar studies to try to identify leaks. We recently completed a uploading our system to an AI and as a pilot study to try to identify some of those critical areas in the system. So we are looking at ways to try to fill in the gaps while we make these decisions, big decisions on staffing and cost. So we are still chipping away. We have active condition assessment projects that we have on the books that we're trying to get to. So we're making progress in those areas.
Okay. All right, so next steps for the district. Well, first we need to increase the amount of data that we gather in our CMMS systems and our GIS systems. This will include analyzing the data that we're currently collecting versus what we should be collecting. And that data will be used for the future forecasts and all the decisions we'll be making. Along with that, we, as General Manager Gumpel said, we need to perform more condition assessments. Regularly assessing our assets could increase their useful lives, and by that decreasing their likelihood of failure scores. As mentioned earlier, our district does a great job, our district staff does a great job of servicing our equipment and our customers, but we could always do better. The best way to expand our capabilities is to accurately document our goals so we can collect that data and make those decisions. And then also that we need to expand the use of our CMMS systems and our GIS systems. Like as mentioned earlier, these are the databases that all of our decisions will be based off of. You know, we need to look at new tools, as District Engineer Hubbard said, to help us analyze our systems. And currently we're looking at a new reporting tool for Power BI to help us analyze our decisions a little bit more, or hopefully a little bit quicker. And we need to expand our asset management program and incorporate it into all of our decision making. Knowing what actions to take and when to take them will help the district maintain its goal of providing clean, safe, reliable, and affordable drinking water and wastewater services to all of our customers.
And I think you can see that really these are data-driven decisions that we need to make, and it all comes back to that data. So when Eric talks about expanding our CMMS system and improving our GIS, that's the data. That's that foundational data that we need to collect through condition assessment, et cetera, to make those decisions on replacement and funding to support that. So we have a lot still to do.
All right. Well, this item is for information and to get support to take to the board of directors at the next board meeting. And at this time, we'll take any questions you have.
All right. Questions from the committee?
No, I mean, asked and answered for me. Thank you.
Same with me, and appreciate the presentation.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good job.
Okay, moving on to our last item, adoption of the 2024 committee calendar. It looks like it's been proposed to meet the fourth Tuesday on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, it's quarterly meetings as shown on the agenda. And unless there's any issues, we wanted to get those on the books. This way you could plan around them. And if there is something that needs to be moved, we could always slide them.
Okay.
This way staff could prepare for them ahead of time also. So
Great.
unless there's any objections from the committee members, we'll put these in, or if there's any adjustments, please let us know.
Okay. Does that work for you, Director Penny?
Yeah, I'm just looking at that Tuesday. That might be right before Thanksgiving, but yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and if there's a light agenda, we could always slide it or cancel one, especially around the holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but no, it's good for me.
Okay. Looks good. Well, that's the end of our agenda. Unless there's anything else, we adjourn this meeting.